Hey there, and welcome to the Magic Snail Channel. This is where we share real life stories about people dealing with all kinds of situations. Some are funny, some are messy, and some are downright unbelievable. If you like hearing stories that feel real and keep you curious, you'll feel right at home here. So go ahead, like the video, and subscribe to the channel if you want more. We've got plenty of stories waiting for you.
I sold the house, but I found freedom. Let it burn.
The ancient Ford pickup coughed like a dying man as I slid underneath it at 3 in the morning. Grease dripped onto my forehead while I wrestled with a stubborn bolt that had probably been corroded since the Clinton administration. The garage smelled like motor oil and broken dreams. Pretty much the story of my life these days. "Danny, you still awake?" My lawyer's voice drifted down from above. "Yeah, Miss Patel. Just trying to make this piece of junk run another week." I wiped my hands on an already filthy rag. "Thanks for coming by so late to get those business papers signed." "No problem. Insurance claims don't wait for business hours." She helped me slide out from under the truck. "Your restoration business is picking up. That's good news for the divorce proceedings." Sarah Patel was the kind of lawyer who could dissect a contract while eating lunch and still make you feel like she cared about your problems. Tonight she looked tired, her usually perfect black hair slightly mussed from the Florida humidity that never seemed to quit, even at 3 a.m. I was just handing her the signed documents when we heard the front door slam hard enough to rattle the windows. High heels clicked across the kitchen tiles with the irregular rhythm of someone who'd had too much to drink. "Crap," I muttered. "Jessica's home." The garage door burst open, and there stood my wife of 15 years. Her blonde hair was disheveled, her makeup smeared, and her designer dress, the one that cost more than I made in a week, was wrinkled like she'd been rolling around in a car somewhere. Jessica's eyes went wide when she saw Miss Patel sitting on my workbench. For exactly 3 seconds, her mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. "What the heck is this?" she slurred, swaying slightly. "Danny, who is this woman? Why is she here at 3 in the morning?" I couldn't help myself. After months of Jessica's cold shoulders, mysterious late nights, and outright lies, seeing her shocked face was like Christmas morning. "Jessica, meet my lawyer, Sarah Patel. We were just finishing up some business paperwork." I gestured casually. "You know, the restoration contracts you said would never amount to anything?" Jessica's face went through several colors, red, white, then green. She took one more look at Miss Patel, who was professionally dressed and clearly there for business, and the reality of her own appearance hit her like a freight train. She crumpled to the garage floor in a dead faint. Miss Patel raised an eyebrow. "Well, that's a first." I stared down at my unconscious wife, noting the hickey on her neck that definitely wasn't from me, and felt something cold settle in my chest. "Welcome to my world, counselor." As I carried Jessica to the couch, her purse spilled open. A hotel key card fell out, along with a receipt from Romano's, the most expensive restaurant in town. Date stamp tonight. Time, 11:30 p.m. I'd been eating a gas station sandwich for dinner while my wife was living it up with someone else's credit card. That's when I decided to stop being the good guy. Tuesday morning brought the usual chaos. Our daughter Ellie, 12 years old and sharp as her old man, was making pancakes while 8-year-old Sam practiced violin in a way that sounded like a chorus of tortured cats. "Mom looks terrible," Ellie observed, flipping a pancake with more skill than her mother had ever shown in the kitchen. "Did she fall down again?" Jessica stumbled into the kitchen wearing sunglasses and a bathrobe, moving like every step hurt. She'd always been a lightweight when it came to alcohol, but lately her hangovers seemed more frequent. "I'm fine, Ellie, just tired from working late." Jessica's voice was hoarse. "At Romano's?" I asked innocently, sipping my coffee. "Must have been some business meeting." Jessica froze halfway to the coffee pot. "What?" "The receipt in your purse. Romano's last night, 11:30. That's pretty late for a client dinner." I kept my tone conversational, but I saw her hands shake as she poured coffee. "I don't know what you're talking about." But her face said otherwise. Ellie looked between us with the kind of intelligence that made me proud and worried at the same time. "Dad, can you drive us to school today? Mom's car smells funny." "Funny how?" "Like that cologne Uncle Derek wears. The stuff that smells like a teenager's locker room." Derek, Jessica's coworker. The guy who'd been showing up at our house more and more often for work projects. The same Derek who drove a leased BMW and thought he was God's gift to women. Jessica's coffee mug hit the floor and shattered. "I'll get the broom," Ellie said, throwing her mother a look that could cut glass. After I dropped the girls at school, I made a detour past Jessica's office building. Sure enough, Derek's silver BMW was parked in the spot next to Jessica's Honda. But something was off about Jessica's car. The passenger seat was adjusted differently than usual. I'd been married to Jessica long enough to know her habits. She was obsessive about her car settings, always complaining when I moved her mirrors or seat. But now the passenger seat was pushed back, adjusted for someone taller, someone like Derek. That afternoon, I paid a visit to my best friend Ricky at his boxing gym. Ricky was an ex-cop who'd opened the gym after taking early retirement. He had the kind of street smarts that came from 20 years of dealing with liars and cheaters. "You look like heck, Danny," he said, wrapping my hands before I hit the heavy bag. "What's eating you?" I told him about the hotel keycard, the restaurant receipt, Derek's cologne, and Jessica's car. Ricky listened without interrupting, the way good cops do. "So what's your plan?" he asked when I finished. "Confront her? Hire a private investigator?" "I'm thinking something more direct." I threw a combination that made the heavy bag swing. Jessica's always been smarter than me, at least according to her. Time to see how smart she really is. "Danny, be careful. Divorce courts don't like husbands who go looking for trouble." "Who says I'm looking for trouble?" I grinned, hitting the bag again. "I'm just going to pay attention to what's already there." That evening, I installed a GPS tracking app on our shared family tablet, the one Jessica used to check her work email. Completely legal since it was registered in my name. I also started paying closer attention to her schedule, her clothes, her excuses. Within 3 days, I had enough evidence to bury her. The GPS showed regular trips to the Sunset Motor Lodge on Highway 19, the same hotel where I'd found the key card. Jessica's credit card statements, which I still had access to as a joint account holder, showed charges for expensive lingerie, restaurants I'd never been to, and a monthly payment to something called discretion services. It took me exactly 10 minutes of internet searching to learn that Discretion Services was a company that provided fake alibis and cover stories for cheating spouses. My wife wasn't just having an affair. She was running it like a business operation. That's when I realized I'd been playing checkers while she was playing chess. Time to change the game. Friday night was the grand opening of Ricky's expanded gym. Half the town showed up, including Jessica, who made a rare appearance at one of my social events. She wore a tight black dress that showed off her figure and drew looks from every man in the room. She was also checking her phone every 5 minutes. "Expecting an important call?" I asked, handing her a beer. "Just work stuff." She didn't look up from the screen. "Derek might stop by later. He's interested in maybe joining the gym." Of course he was. Derek arrived at 9:30, wearing designer workout clothes that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. He had the kind of artificial confidence that came from driving a car he couldn't afford and sleeping with other men's wives. "Danny!" he called out like we were old friends. "Great turnout tonight. Jessica was just telling me about your little business venture here." "It's Ricky's gym, not mine," I corrected. "I just help out sometimes." Right. The restoration thing is your gig." Derek's smile was patronizing. "How's that working out for you?" Before I could answer, Jessica appeared at Derek's side. "Derek, you should see the new equipment. It's really impressive." The way she said it, the way she looked at him, the way her hand briefly touched his arm, it was like watching a bad movie where the actors forgot other people could see them. "Actually," Derek said, puffing out his chest, "I was thinking about getting back into boxing. I did some amateur stuff in college." Ricky overheard and grinned. "Is that right? Danny here was Golden Gloves champion 3 years running. Maybe you two should spar sometime." The gym went quiet. Everyone knew the story. I'd been good enough to go pro before I met Jessica. She'd convinced me to give up boxing and focus on building a real career. Looking back, I realized she'd been embarrassed by having a husband who got hit in the face for sport. "I don't know," Derek said, his confidence wavering slightly. "I wouldn't want to hurt Danny. I'm probably in better shape these days." That's when I made my decision. "Tell you what, Derek, let's settle this right now." I started pulling off my shirt. 3 rounds, just for fun, unless you're worried about messing up that pretty face." Jessica grabbed my arm. "Danny, don't be ridiculous. Derek didn't come here to fight." "It's okay, Jess," Derek said, using the nickname only I was supposed to use. "I can handle myself." The crowd formed a circle around the ring. Ricky reluctantly agreed to referee after making us both sign liability waivers. Derek climbed through the ropes like he owned the place, shadow boxing and showing off for the crowd. I took my time putting on gloves, letting him get comfortable, letting him think this was going to be easy. The bell rang. Derek came out swinging wild haymakers, trying to end it quick. I slipped every punch, staying just out of range, letting him tire himself out. The crowd was cheering, but I could hear Jessica's voice above the rest. Be careful, Derek. Not be careful, both of you. Not stop this foolishness. She was worried about Derek. In the second round, Derek got lucky and landed a glancing blow to my shoulder. He raised his arms like he'd won the lottery, playing to the crowd. That's when I decided to stop playing games. I stepped inside his guard and landed a textbook body shot, right under his ribs. Derek doubled over, gasping like a fish. The crowd went silent. You okay, champ? I asked loud enough for everyone to hear. Want to keep going, or should we call it here? Derek tried to straighten up, tried to look tough, but he was done. His face was red and he was breathing hard. I think I pulled something, he wheezed. That's what happens when you bite off more than you can chew, I said, pulling off my gloves. Maybe stick to the treadmill next time. The crowd laughed, and Derek's face went even redder. Jessica rushed to his side, fussing over him like he'd been shot instead of just embarrassed. Are you hurt? Should we go to the hospital? I'm fine, Derek snapped, shrugging off her hands. Just winded. But I could see the humiliation in his eyes. He'd tried to show off in front of my wife, and instead he'd been exposed as a fraud. As people started to leave, Jessica cornered me by the water fountain. That was unnecessary, Danny. You embarrassed him in front of everyone. He embarrassed himself. I just gave him the opportunity. What's that supposed to mean? I looked at her, really looked at her. The woman I'd married, the mother of my children, the person who'd promised to love me for better or worse. She was standing there defending another man, worried about his feelings instead of mine. It means I'm done pretending I don't know what's going on, Jessica. Her face went pale. I don't know what you think you know. I know about the hotel. I know about the restaurant receipts. I know about discretion services. Each word hit her like a physical blow. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Jessica opened her mouth, then closed it. For the first time in months, she had nothing to say. That's what I thought, I said, walking away. Behind me, I heard Derek asking if she was ready to leave, together. By Monday morning, the video was everywhere. Ricky's wife had filmed the boxing match and posted it to the gym's Facebook page. Within 12 hours, it had been shared across every local social media group, with commentary ranging from Danny showed that pretty boy what's what to Derek got schooled by the old man. My phone was buzzing with messages from people I hadn't heard from in years. Most were congratulatory, but a few were asking pointed questions about why Derek and Jessica had left together after the fight. Jessica was in full damage control mode. She'd called in sick to work and spent the morning making phone calls, trying to contain the gossip. I could hear her in the bedroom, speaking in urgent whispers. It's not what it looks like. Danny's been acting strange lately. No, there's nothing going on. But the damage was done. In a town like ours, gossip traveled faster than wildfire, and Jessica's reputation was built on being the perfect corporate wife. Having her personal business become public entertainment was her worst nightmare. Ellie found me in the garage, working on a 1967 Mustang that belonged to one of my better-paying clients. Dad, kids at school are talking about the fight. What are they saying? That you beat up Mom's boyfriend. She said it matter-of-factly, like she was discussing the weather. Is that true? I put down my wrench and looked at my daughter. She had Jessica's blonde hair but my green eyes, and she was too smart for her own good. What do you think, kiddo? I think Mom's been acting weird for months. I think Uncle Derek comes around too much, and I think you're not as dumb as everyone assumes. When did you get so wise? Someone had to be the adult around here. She sat on my workbench, swinging her legs. Are you and Mom getting divorced? The question hit me harder than Derek's punch ever could. I don't know yet, Ellie. Would that bother you? Honestly, I'm more bothered by the lying. At least if you got divorced, everyone would stop pretending everything's normal. That afternoon, my business phone rang. It was Mrs. Henderson, one of my regular customers. Danny, I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to cancel the work on my kitchen cabinets. Is there a problem with the estimate? No, it's just, well, Harold saw that video, and he thinks it might be better if we use someone else. You understand? I understood perfectly. Harold Henderson was one of Derek's golf buddies, and apparently loyalty ran deeper than business sense. 3 more customers called that day with similar excuses. By evening, I'd lost about 40% of my scheduled work for the next month. Jessica emerged from the bedroom around dinner time, looking like she'd been through a war. Her eyes were red, and her usually perfect hair was a mess. "We need to talk," she said. "I'm listening. This has to stop. The gossip, the accusations, the fighting. It's affecting my job, the kids, everything. Then stop giving people something to gossip about. I haven't done anything wrong. Jessica, I have credit card statements, GPS logs, and about 50 witnesses who saw you fawning over Derek after he got his A kicked. What exactly do you think wrong means?" She sat down at the kitchen table, and for a moment she looked like the woman I'd married, vulnerable, uncertain, human. "It's not what you think," she said quietly. "Then tell me what it is. Derek and we're friends. Good friends. Maybe we've gotten a little too close, but it's not physical. It's not an affair. Friends don't pay for alibis, Jessica." Her face crumpled. "How did you... Discretion services, $99 a month for fake excuses and cover stories. Want to explain that one?" Jessica was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. "I was going to leave you." The words hung in the air like smoke. I felt something inside my chest crack, but it wasn't my heart breaking. It was something else. Something that had been holding me back. When? After the holidays. I didn't want to ruin Christmas for the girls. How thoughtful. And Derek? He was going to help me find an apartment. Help me start over. I laughed, and the sound was bitter even to my own ears. Let me guess. He was going to be your knight in shining armor. Rescue you from your boring husband and your boring life? It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that. I stood up, feeling lighter than I had in months. "You know what, Jessica? You want to leave? Go ahead. But you're not taking my kids, my house, or my dignity with you." "Danny, wait!" But I was already walking out the door. I had phone calls to make and plans to set in motion. If Jessica wanted to play games, I was about to show her what a real player looked like. Wednesday morning, I was drinking coffee and reading the newspaper when Jessica's phone started ringing. She was in the shower, so I glanced at the caller ID. Derek. I answered on the 4th ring. "Jessica's phone, Danny speaking." Silence on the other end, then, "Is Jessica available?" "She's indisposed at the moment. Can I take a message?" Just tell her I called." "Will do, champ." "Hey, how are those ribs feeling? Still sore?" He hung up. When Jessica came downstairs, I handed her the phone. "Derek called. I told him you were busy." "You answered my phone?" "It was ringing. I was being helpful." I turned back to my newspaper. He sounded nervous. "Everything okay at work?" Jessica didn't answer, but I could see the wheels turning in her head. She was starting to realize that her carefully constructed secret wasn't so secret anymore. That afternoon, I drove to Derek's apartment complex, a flashy place called Sunset Gardens that catered to young professionals with more money than sense. His BMW was in its assigned spot, looking pristine and expensive. I parked across the street and waited. At 5:30, Derek emerged from the building, talking on his phone. He looked agitated, gesturing with his free hand. When he reached his car, he stopped and stared. Someone had keyed a message into his driver's side door. "Homewrecker." Derek spun around, looking for witnesses, but the parking lot was empty, except for me. I waved from my truck, and his face went purple with rage. He stormed over to my window. "Did you do this?" "Do what?" "You know perfectly well what. You vandalized my car." "That's a serious accusation, Derek. Do you have any proof?" "I'll call the police." "Go ahead. I'll wait right here while you explain to them why someone would write homewrecker on your car. Should be an interesting conversation." Derek's mouth opened and closed like a fish. He knew he couldn't call the cops without raising questions he didn't want to answer. "This isn't over," he said finally. "No, it's not." I started my engine. "But you might want to think carefully about your next move. I'm not the same guy who used to let people walk all over him." That evening, Jessica was unusually quiet during dinner. She picked at her food and kept checking her phone, but Derek wasn't calling. "Everything okay at work, honey?" I asked with mock concern. "Fine," she said curtly. Derek seemed upset when I talked to him earlier. "I hope there's not trouble in paradise." Jessica's fork clattered against her plate. "What did you say to him?" "Nothing much. Just had a friendly chat about respect and consequences." Ellie looked up from her homework. "Dad, what's a homewrecker?" Jessica went white. Where did you hear that word? Jenny Morrison's mom was talking about it at pickup today. She said someone wrote it on a car at Sunset Gardens. People talk too much in this town, I said mildly. Ellie, finish your math homework. Sam, practice violin for 20 minutes, then you can watch TV. After the girls went to their rooms, Jessica confronted me in the kitchen. You're destroying everything, she hissed. My job, my reputation, my life. I'm not destroying anything. I'm just letting people see what was already there. This has to stop, Danny. I mean it. Then end it. Tell Derek it's over, cut contact, and we'll try to work things out. It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple. Unless you don't want to end it. Jessica was quiet for a long moment. When she looked up, there was something cold in her eyes that I'd never seen before. Maybe I don't. Then we have a problem. No, Danny. You have a problem. The next morning, I found out what she meant. A sheriff's deputy was waiting in my driveway when I came back from dropping the girls at school. Danny Morrison? That's me. I have a restraining order here. You're to stay at least 500 feet away from Derek Castellanos and his residence. I read through the paperwork. Derek was claiming I'd threatened him, vandalized his property, and was stalking him. All lies, but lies that looked official on legal documents. This is BS, I told the deputy. Maybe so, but it's legal BS. Violate this order, and you'll be spending time in county lockup. After the deputy left, I called Miss Patel. They're trying to paint you as the aggressor, she explained after I read her the restraining order. It's a common tactic in divorce proceedings. Make the husband look unstable, violent, dangerous. So what do? You be smarter than they are. And Danny, whatever you're planning, make sure it's legal. I can't help you if you end up in jail. That afternoon, I got a call from my biggest client, Henderson Construction. They were canceling a $15,000 restoration job. Sorry, Danny, but we can't afford to be associated with this drama. Maybe when things settle down? By evening, I'd lost 3 more clients. Word was spreading that I was unstable, violent, and going through a messy divorce. In a small town, reputation was everything, and mine was being systematically destroyed. Jessica came home late, looking satisfied with herself. Rough day? She asked with fake sympathy. You could say that. Maybe you should have thought about consequences before you started this war. I looked at my wife, really looked at her. The mask was completely off now. This wasn't the woman who'd cried at our wedding, or held my hand during her father's funeral, or stayed up all night when Sam had pneumonia. This was someone else entirely. You're right, I said quietly. I should have thought about consequences. Does that mean you're ready to be reasonable? Oh, I'm going to be very reasonable, just not in the way you expect. That night, after Jessica went to bed, I sat in my garage and made a list. Not a list of grievances or evidence or legal strategies. A list of everything Jessica valued most in the world. Her job, her reputation, her social status, her sense of control. If she wanted to play hardball, I was about to show her what a real game looked like. The Riverside Elementary School fundraiser was the social event of the year in our little town. Everyone who was anyone showed up to see and be seen, write checks for the children, and catch up on the latest gossip. This year, I had a special reason to attend. Jessica arrived looking like $1 million in a red dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. She worked the crowd like a politician, smiling and chatting with all the right people, playing the role of successful corporate executive and devoted mother. Derek was there too, staying carefully on the opposite side of the room from me to avoid violating his restraining order. He looked nervous, checking his phone constantly and avoiding eye contact with anyone who might ask uncomfortable questions. I waited until the silent auction was winding down and most people had had a few drinks. Then I made my move. Excuse me, I said, tapping the microphone at the front of the room. Could I have everyone's attention for just a moment? The crowd turned toward me with the kind of polite interest reserved for boring speeches about school budgets. Most of you know me as Danny Morrison, local business owner and father of 2 amazing girls who attend this school. What you might not know is that I've been going through some personal challenges lately. Jessica's face went white. She started pushing through the crowd toward the exit, but her friend Melissa grabbed her arm and whispered something that made her stop. You see, I recently discovered that my wife of 15 years has been having an affair with her coworker. Now I know what you're thinking. This isn't really the time or place for personal drama. But here's the thing. When someone tries to destroy your life, your business, and your relationship with your children, Sometimes you have to fight back. The room was dead silent now. Everyone was staring at me, then at Jessica, then at Derek, who looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. Derek Castellanos over there filed a restraining order against me, claiming I'm dangerous and unstable. What he didn't mention is that he's been sleeping with my wife for 6 months, using company resources to cover their tracks and planning to help her take my children away from me. "Danny, stop," Jessica called out, her voice shaking. This isn't what, Jessica? True? Should I tell everyone about discretion services? The fake alibi company you've been paying to cover your tracks? Or maybe about the hotel receipts I found or the GPS logs showing your regular trips to Derek's apartment? Derek tried to slip out the back door but found his way blocked by a crowd of curious onlookers. "Here's what really happened," I continued, warming to my theme. My wife decided she was too good for her blue-collar husband. She wanted someone younger, richer, more sophisticated, someone who drives a leased BMW and wears cologne that costs more than my work boots. A few people in the crowd chuckled. Derek's face was bright red now. So she started an affair, used company resources to hide it, and when I found out, she tried to destroy my business and paint me as the bad guy. The restraining order? That was just the opening move in a divorce strategy designed to take my house, my kids, and whatever dignity I had left. "That's enough!" Jessica shouted, tears streaming down her face. "You're humiliating yourself!" "No, Jessica, I'm humiliating you. There's a difference." I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a thick manila envelope. This contains copies of every hotel receipt, every credit card statement, every text message, and every piece of evidence documenting your affair. There's also a copy of Derek's personnel file, which I obtained through a friend in HR at your company. Turns out Derek has been sleeping with married coworkers before. It's kind of his specialty. Derek made a strangled noise and bolted for the door. This time, people let him through. "I've already sent copies to your boss, your HR department, and Derek's wife. Oh, did I forget to mention Derek is married? His wife lives in Tampa, which is why he was so available for those late-night business meetings." The crowd was buzzing now, people whispering and pointing. Jessica stood frozen in the middle of the room, mascara running down her cheeks. "But here's the best part," I said, grinning. "This morning I sold our house. It was in my name only. I bought it before we got married, so I didn't need Jessica's permission. I also emptied our joint accounts and moved the money to a new bank. Completely legal, according to my lawyer." Jessica's legs gave out, and she had to grab a table to keep from falling. "The house closes next Friday. Jessica, you'll need to find somewhere else to live. I suggest asking Derek, but you might want to hurry. His wife is filing for divorce tomorrow, and she's going after his assets." I folded up my notes and put them back in my pocket. "Oh, and one more thing, the restraining order Derek filed against me? It works both ways. He can't come within 500 feet of me either. Since I'll be living in the apartment above Ricky's gym, and since the gym is right across the street from Jessica's office building, Derek might want to start looking for a new job." The room erupted in chaos. People were shouting questions, Jessica was sobbing, and several people were already pulling out their phones to spread the news. I walked calmly to where my daughters were sitting with their friends, looking shocked, but not entirely surprised. "Come on, girls. Time to go home." "Dad," Ellie said as we walked to the car, "that was either the most awesome thing I've ever seen or the most terrible—" "Probably both, kiddo. Are we really moving out of the house?" "Yep, but don't worry. Our new place has a great view, and you'll still go to the same school." Sam, who had been quiet through the whole ordeal, finally spoke up. "Dad, are you the bad guy now?" I thought about it as I buckled her into her car seat. "Maybe, sweetheart, but sometimes being the bad guy is the only way to stop the real villains." Behind us, I could see Jessica surrounded by her friends, all of them talking at once. She looked lost, broken, like someone who just watched her entire world collapse, which I suppose she had. As we drove away from the school, I caught sight of Derek's BMW speeding out of the parking lot, probably heading home to deal with his own domestic crisis. I'd warned them both that actions have consequences. They just hadn't believed me. Now they knew better. 3 months later, Jessica was living in a studio apartment across town, working as a temp because her corporate job had eliminated her position shortly after the fundraiser incident. Derek had moved back to Tampa to try to salvage his marriage, but word was his wife had taken him for everything he was worth. The girls and I were doing fine in our apartment above the gym. Business was actually better than ever. Apparently, a lot of people respected a man who fought back when someone tried to destroy his family. I never did find out if Jessica really loved Derek or if he was just her escape route from a life she'd grown tired of. In the end, it didn't matter. They'd played me for a fool, and I'd returned the favor with interest. Some people called me a villain after that night at the school. They said I'd been cruel, vindictive, that I'd taken my revenge too far. Maybe they were right. But as I tucked my daughters into bed in our new home, listening to them laugh about their day at school, I couldn't bring myself to care. I'd worn the villain's crown, and it fit just fine.